Hello folks and welcome to today's episode of Our Game with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney. There's a huge amount of stuff going on this weekend. Reminder, we're brought to you by ourstore.ie, where you get our official merchandise. Any amount of great stuff going on there, whether it's your county. Look at this little cup there, turn it sideways, Michael, like nuts to a monkey. There's any amount of great stuff there, even a bit of soccer stuff, the whole lot. We've got a great show coming today. John Dermody, so he's a Ballyhale man who's currently coach with Carlow, so he knows Tom Mullally of Naas very well. Naas are up against his native Ballyhale this weekend, so that's going to be good chatting to him. He was my coach in Coola about 10 years ago, so there'll probably be a bit of crack flying there. And we'll also have Rory Hickey, obviously a referee, and of course an Aero Guinness man. They've got a big weekend coming. Michael, we start off with the good stuff, which is David Clifford has been proposed to be captain next year for Kerry. Is it adding unnecessary pressure to him, or is it like everything with David Clifford, won't take a funk out of him?
But he's had it already. He had it already during even it was the second or third year of his Kerry career. He was captain. It didn't seem to bother him at all. If anything, it was just that other lads probably weren't chipping in enough around him. Really, to be honest with you, like Shane, I don't know. There's never been a GA player to take pressure better than Clifford. Realistically, look at the hype train that he brought with him coming out of minor, and look at how he has dealt with it. What is he? 4 All-Stars. Footballer of the year, young footballer of the year. He has his All-Ireland medal. He got his league medal this year. His 2022 keeps going on, and there's obviously the potential for 2023 to be better. Like, imagine Clifford potentially captaining Kerry in an All-Ireland final, let's just say against the Dubs. Like, you thought 2022 was good. Beating, let's say, Dublin in All-Ireland final with him as captain would be even better from a Kerry point of view. And isn't there some, I know he wore 14 most of this year, but isn't there some sort of jinx, shall we say, on Kerry captains wearing 13?
Yeah, that none of them have ever lifted the All-Ireland, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, if anybody was going to break it, it would be potentially him. But it looks like he's gone from 13 now to 14. But no, I don't think it adds any pressure because, as I said, name me, Shane, a better player, someone who has dealt with pressure better than Clifford. Now, I'd say Canning dealt with pressure well, but even in the middle stage of his career, maybe was in not a rut, like a rut by his standards, which is still unreal. But then, the latter stage of his career was absolutely unreal again, as was the early stages. But like, I don't know if any player has dealt with pressure better than Clifford throughout their GA career. Yeah, maybe Con, but Con didn't bring that hype train with him, Shane. Coming from minor under 21, really, he I would say had a bit of pressure, but there wasn't the same sort of talk about him as there was about a Clifford or a Canning.
Yeah, it's hard to think who else would have had that same level of hype as a young lad. I suppose Owen Kelly would have had a lot of hype as a young lad. I mean, certainly locally, everyone knew who he was.
Yeah, Brian Whelan would have had a fair bit of hype as well because he played an All-Ireland senior semi-final the same year as a 21 semi-final and a minor final. He was still a minor when he came on against Antrim that year. He would have brought a fair bit of hype with him. Didn't deal with it too badly, I'd say, to be fair. But Clifford is just a phenomenon on and off the pitch. He really is, and I don't see that captaincy adding any burden to him whatsoever. He'll take it in his stride, as he seems to have taken everything else in his life and his career in his stride. ML89 just says DJ Carey, and DJ brought, and John will definitely know about the hype that DJ brought with him, and talk about a lad backing it up as well. Great to have you with us, John.
Great to be here, lads.
So
my debut.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious straight away why his nickname is Smiley, isn't it?
It is, to be fair. Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely not a bad nickname. There's a Smiley in every club, I'd say.
I've been called worse.
So, Smiley, let's talk about Ballyhale against Naas this weekend. I think the whole country is expecting it to be a pretty comfortable win for Ballyhale, considering how dominant they've been both locally and even, just all the All-Irelands they've collected in recent times. But with Tom Mullally as manager, and you know him well as his coach with Carlow, he'll have him very well prepared. And his record as a club manager, never mind county, is unbelievably impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no. Look, Tom will have every angle covered. Preparation will be excellent, and like when he was involved with Mount Leinster Rangers, like they were being written off the whole way up as well, and won a Leinster, and then I think they were beaten in All-Ireland afterwards. But without doubt, Tom will have the plans in place, and it'll be whether that can carry it onto the pitch and Ballyhale can react to that, which they haven't been found wanting very often in the past. So hopefully they'll be able to do it again.
And why do you pronounce it as Ballyhale? Because you were the first one to put me onto this. When you came in with Kula, I was like, what's he on about Ballyhale? Is there not a Y in the middle of this?
Ballyhale, yeah. I said we have our own language in South Kilkenny. Yeah, so there you go. We've taken plenty of abuse for it over the years as well. Another stick to beat as well.
Yeah. What's the mood like in Ballyhale this year? Because obviously the All Ireland went the way it did. Maybe you'd had a bit of a get out of jail card against St. Thomas's in the All Ireland semi-final, but the way Ballygunner stunned you then in the All Ireland final, what's the mood been like since?
Yeah, well, I'd say, definitely a lot of hurt. I think last year, I'd say the lads had even admitted themselves they probably weren't playing great hurling the whole way through, and actually probably in the final they played their best game. And I'd say probably regret when they had a bit of supremacy there, and the only frees were keeping Ballygunner in it maybe midway through the second half, that they didn't press on and kind of left the game there that Ballygunner could come back into it. So it did hurt them. I suppose they're usually on the other side of getting those late wins, just with the belief that they have that keep going, and the history in the club, and that it's always worth a few points in those the clutch moments that they call. But I think definitely a renewed focus, and I think this year they've been playing, to my eye anyway, kind of playing with more of a pattern to their play. I suppose last year they seemed to me to be just relying on kind of individual brilliance. You have TJ's free there to get over the line in the semi, and then just the whole way through they were kind of getting narrow wins, just eking it out with someone doing something special in the last 5 or 10 minutes. While this year I think they're a lot more methodical in their play, and everyone seems to know where the ball is going. Switching the player down the line, whatever it is, but the forwards, the delivery seems to be better, and they're working the ball out better, to my eye anyway. So I'd say there's definitely a renewed focus there. And I suppose being the 50th year of the club and going for the 5 in a row, there was a whole load of motivating factors there. And then you had the Club All Ireland, that sore loss thrown in on top of that. So I said the whole kind of mixing everything in the pot makes kind of a perfect storm for them this year,
And it's also been a tough year losing Paul Shefton. I know you were coaching. Was it a minor team you were telling me that you'd coached with him in the past?
Yeah. So Paul would have been, if you can think of a club man, I suppose he was friends with everyone in the club and would talk to anyone from about anything really. If you had no interest in hurling, people would still call him a great friend. He could talk to anyone about it, and just a lovely fella, as genuine as you could meet. So that was really shook the club as well, And I suppose we've had a lot of tragedy down through the years in Ballyhale with young people, the Elwood family as well, and it's just for whatever kind of thing does be hanging over, but. Paul was definitely like a huge. Remember, he came to me that no one would take that minor team. I suppose typical enough in rural areas where you have a spurt of a group coming together, and then you might lull. So we were actually going down for that minor team. We were actually going down where I think Jake Mullin played, and he was only 13, I think, to make the 15 players that day. So a younger brother of Darren and Adrian and Paddy again. So Paul had a nephew playing on it, and they weren't really getting any. So he was approached today. He said, "Would I come in with him?" So we did, and we were not great crack out of him the whole year. To be fair, like we won a couple of matches, but we had only kind of a strong spine up the middle, and the rest were under 15s, and then we're even down to under 13s for some of the corner positions. It's say you only need 1 or 2. I think 2 then came on from that minor teams, which was 2 years ago. 2 of them have been starting on and off the whole year and came on the county final. So we had Killian Corcoran there, which would be Ron and Dara's younger brother, and then Niall Shortall came on and scored that pint off the hurl. That's my trademark there that I taught 2 years ago.
That'd be your hurling, all right. Michael, you want to hop in there?
Yeah, no, just something you said about the about kind of the renewed freshness, John. Like any element of staleness, like it did look like there was a bit of staleness there last year, just from being on the road so long, I'd say. But I know even chatting Colin Fennelly after the county final, like they all look like they're hopping again. Everybody, like, it's almost like everybody's at the boil the whole time. They're not relying on one lad now to pull out something. It's a real team, all firing on all cylinders. And even the way they're playing now, like they're throwing around the ball. It's so impressively how they throw around that ball. There was a score that Evan Shefflin got in the county final, where it's like 10 passes and it's just so measured, so controlled. I was looking from the press box the last day, and Richie Reid just put a ball, like there's a man standing 25 yards in front of him, a Ballyhale man 10 yards behind him, no problem, the ball just over the top. They're so loose and but it's so controlled as well. They look like a team, like I'd say they're probably like hitting a bit of a peak now, even though they hit a couple of peaks before. And there's so many guys in good form. Like you couldn't go through the team and say there's anyone out of form. They're all playing to a really high level now, which is a dangerous thing for Naas and probably a dangerous thing for a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I think you can kind of compare last year. You can kind of compare, I suppose, what Limerick were doing this year. They were winning games, but they were leaving teams in it the whole way up, and just grinding it out kind of then. And I suppose Ballyhale got caught, whereas Limerick didn't. They got caught with that sucker punch against Ballygunner in the final. And then, Colin and Joey were in America there for the summer, and I was over there with them for a while as well. But that totally freshened them up. And, they just came back with a renewed hunger, and they had the county lads coming back, and they kind of had it was a whole load of kind of ingredients that went into for it, a newfound determination for this year, a new hunger, just a whole 5 in a row. You had Paul, you had the beaten last year, fresh management team coming in, and I agree with you, like the hurling that they're playing this year. They all kind of know what they're doing. I suppose that the real challenge for Naas is kind of, people talk about the forwards that the Shamrocks have, and they do have brilliant forwards, but the delivery in from the half back line and midfield area, midfielders coming deep and delivering that ball in has been phenomenal. So if you look against Tullaroan in the semi-final, like Colin Fenney, they got 1-3 or 1-4 off young Tommy Walsh, but it was the delivery of the ball in deep inside into the full forward line that on his favourite side. And if Colin's between you and the ball, you're not getting it. And then when he gets the ball in his hand, it's very hard to stop. So I'd agree with all of what you said there. They definitely have a renewed focus. They're playing better, renewed hunger. They all seem to be on form. And I suppose the older lads, they're not old as in decline, but the younger lads have definitely stepped up. Like Adrian Mullin, the work rate he's gone through this year especially. Like I suppose he had the cruciate there 2 years ago and he was still working his way back, but this year he's been phenomenal. Dara Corcoran has really stepped up there in the half back line as well, like a massive man, brilliant ball player as well. Richie Reid, since he made the breakthrough at the county, has gone on to another level in centre back there as well. So like there's while the forwards are taking all the headlines and they're playing fantastic stuff, I think that the real difference this year has been the delivery of the ball in from the half back line, in midfield area, Ronan Corcoran, Paddy Mullin, and the lads I called out there. So that's for me, that's the real challenge for Naas is cutting that out, and and then I think you're giving yourself a chance. But that's where I think the main improvement has been.
Smiley, was there much blackguarding going on when you joined Joey and Colin in America for the summer? You're a married man with kids now at this stage. So you shouldn't be out to America on a day, wouldn't you?
They're all over with me. I won American final over there. I took a few sessions and came in full credit for that.
Is that the first title you ever won then?
You lost one for me with Coola, but other than that, I was doing okay.
Hey, now this is perfect timing to bring this in. Cian Waldron, former Coola clubman, saying, "Good to see two of you talking after all the controversy surrounding the 2012 county final. Who wants to take this story up or give their side of events?"
I don't think we had any controversy there, did we?
I'll go on there first anyway. I think Shane had an injury, I think, during the year. But what is it? Finger injury? Did you break a finger that year? Yeah. So it was coming back. He was out, I think, for the knockout, and he was coming back. He was going to be back about 2 weeks before the county final. So anyway, he was eager to make a pint in training anyway that he was ready. So wherever we threw him on, there was lads coming off with cuts under the face guard, slaps on the thumbs, the whole lot. He was making his pint anyway. But so I think we were 2 pints down against Kilmacud already then, and Shane was on the bench, and we were 2 pints down, 15 minutes to go. And we turned around, and there was only one face we saw, Stapleton there. So he had the bit between the teeth. He was ready for action. Said, "This lad make the difference." So we brought him in anyway. 3 minutes later, 3 frees, 5 pints between the teams.
Oh, I'll tell you something, John. You came armed today, in fairness. Yeah,
this is a stitch-up. This is a big stitch-up. I think we had it last on the sideline anyway.
The sideline always gets the blame anyway.
It's funny, John. This man, I always say he has selective memory. He didn't think there was any issue with the 2012 county final, so he's clearly forgotten those 3 frees that he gave away.
I think the first ball was poked down on him. The referee had the whistle blown while the ball hadn't even landed. Free in. And they weren't giving away frees easy that day either, I'll tell you.
I'd say he was a hard enough man to handle, John, was he? Coaching management
no, he wasn't the worst. He wasn't the worst. We won't say too much bad about him.
Oh, just John, say all you like. There's no panic at all. Like
he brought plenty of ignorance to the table.
We always say that's a good trait, to be fair.
It is November anyway, yeah.
I was just thinking of one of the lads that you would have been training as well at the time, Shane Walsh. He's also from Tipperary, and he played with us for a couple of years. He's involved with Naas now.
Naas, yeah.
Few years. He went through a fairly serious procedure there recently, and I know he's on the mend, and he's not. He won't be doing a bit of hurling at the moment, but we'll wish him the best. But do you remember after the All-Ireland semi-final in 2012 when Tipperary got absolutely hammered by Kilkenny, and obviously you being a Kilkenny man and Keane Waldron who was commenting there as well, and myself and Shane Walsh, who we were calling Pig Walsh, his father's a guard and his father is known as Pig Walsh. We obviously latched onto that straight away. But do you remember how we reacted to the whole Tommy Walsh and Lara Corbett and the little circus that was going on at training the next day? myself and Pig Walsh showed up in full tip regalia, head to toe, and started chasing each other around the field. Because obviously we had the leg to stand on when we were talking about the match.
Yeah. You cut out any chance for slagging there anyway, straight away.
Yeah, cut it off at source. Hey, how are things going with Carlo anyway? You enjoying that?
Yeah, loving it. Yeah, it's great. You have players there. Great to turn up and have 30 players, a high standard and interested and willing to go. With club teams during the summer there can be an awful lull there when you're down to 12, 14, 15 players, lads gone to America, gone on holidays and so on, So, and the season is short as well, up to June, January to June kind of thing. And so it's great, really enjoying it. Tom, great to work under as well. He's always challenging players and challenging coaches as well, and kind of thing, talking through things before, reflecting on things afterwards and so on. So, a very good setup, his strength and conditioning coach there, and nutritionists and so on, physios and so on. So you're learning there the whole time as well, from other aspects of it, So no, really enjoying it.
Just on Tom, John. Tom is a serious operator. Like the run with Mount Leinster Rangers, even with Carlo, I always brought Naas through the ranks as well. Like probably maybe a bit unheralded and kind of surprised maybe that he hasn't, had even one of the county jobs within Kilkenny, be it minor or 20s or something like that. But he's a serious operator.
Oh yeah, it's like very successful, and even Clara and Kilkenny won county championships with as well there. So everywhere he goes, he's bringing silverware. And you can see just that in the Naas team feeding into the Kildare team as well. That they're having a huge influence on that. But Tom, he's very, I suppose, good just in kind of psychological sense of getting into players' heads. All constantly getting the players to improve and to keep looking for areas they can improve and reflecting on their performance and all that kind of stuff. So excellent, and you can see it. You can see why he's been successful. Kind of everywhere he goes, he brings good standards and a good culture into the place as well. So no, without doubt. And you'd have to say, like, even the management teams that I don't know the Kilmacud, but Morris Elwood there would say Mullins as well, very successful. The whole way up, he won Club All Ireland with Ballyhale and did a 3 in a row over Ballyhale as well, and I think he won a Junior All Ireland with Ballyragget as well, and they went on to win an intermediate county final, and I think they could have been beaten in the intermediate All Ireland, were they? Yeah, and he was involved with Glenmore last year, who won the intermediate final in Kilkenny, and then St Mullins this year. So he obviously has a very strong credentials as well. and no more than our own Ballyhale management team as well. You know, they've been involved in successful, I think, underage Kenny minor teams as well. You know, at Hoban and that. So, so like you know, that those people they bring, they're great man managers. I think is their main thing, and I think that's very important to keep numbers 20 to 30 happy and content, which is not always easy to do. You know, so to get those numbers down for training and so on, but and always getting the better players to keep looking to improve and looking to impress. You know, that's I think the two main strengths. But yeah, no doubt, it's a very serious operator. Yeah, and like Tom will have no stone left unturned at the weekend, you know. So
I was watching Kilmacud against Clock Ballycollar recently, and they were very impressive and saw the game out, and Clock got a couple of red cards, so that obviously affected their chances in that game. But from a St. Mullin's point of view, and the players that you have with Carlow as well, the likes of Mouse Kavanagh, most people know, but can you talk to us about some of the players that you have with Carlow that Crokes will have to be watching this weekend?
Yeah, like I think like St. Mullins are probably an underrated team. I think they'll be strong enough. Like they've Conor Keogh now as a young player. He kind of played inside. I think he was midfield the last day, but we kind of played him as a full forward in the full forward line. But he'd come out and win his own ball. He's a very good player, young player. You have John Doyle as well, very strong in the air, very good to use the ball. Then in you have James Doyle. Then he wasn't in with us last year, but he was there the year before. I think he get 2-5 or something in a Club All Ireland a couple of years back. Intermediate Club All Ireland maybe, but a couple of years back. But again, an excellent player, very strong runner, massive strike on a ball, you know, if he gets in around goal, and he'll need to be watched. So they do have dangers there. They have dangers there in their forward line. And then is it Jason O'Neill? And he hasn't been in with Carlow. I think he got 2-7 in the county final as well. So like they're very good forwards, and you make sure Morris Edward Levy's homework done about how best to utilise them. You know, the Shamrocks always play a lovely brand of hurling under Morris between 06 and 08 there as well. You know, so. Yeah, so they'll all have to be like I know Mouse will get most of the attention, but the other lads are very like Jason O'Neill's 2-7 in a county final, and James Doyle, Conor Keogh, they're all capable of scoring 4 or 5 points from play, or 1-4, 1-5, whatever it may be. So there's more than Mouse to watch. Now Mouse is an excellent player, but they have dangers there all over the field, you know. And then Ger Cody in the back line there, he was in as well. And they've other lads, Jack Kavanagh, and a couple of more there back there as well, you know. So they're an experienced side and they're a quality side, I think. But like no more than Kilmacud are very good now as well, you know. So I think that could be a tight enough game, you know.
Yeah, Alex Considine was suspended for the last day out against Clock, so you'd imagine he'll be back. He's definitely like a very physical player, very direct, so he's someone that Mullins will have to watch. Davy Crowe limped off, injured the last day. It looked like maybe a hamstring, some sort of a leg injury, so Crokes would be hoping he's right. And I was even thinking about the midfield. Brian Hayes and Davy Crowe, they're both young lads, both very dynamic, and you'd imagine, Michael, that Jack Kavanagh will be looking to, I don't know, maybe even lower the blade, get into them anyway.
Yeah, well, he's a real enforcer around the middle of the pitch. Can teeter on the line a small bit, but a very, very physical player, perfect for this time of the year as well. And just on what John is saying there as well, the forwards probably get the limelight a lot of the time, but it's lads like that, and the more than we said, like Will O'Donoghue with Limerick, or a Paddy Levy with Ballygunner, it's those real workhorses that do a lot of the work, and hardship for other lads that are kind of the difference makers in games. But yeah, I'd be the same as John, expecting that to be a very, very tight game. Crokes are, you know, a young, mobile side, playing tactically very, very astute, playing through the lines, playing to their strengths, using the sweeper as an attacker when they have the ball. Mullins, you know, a very good side as well, obviously tactically astute too. Probably a bit maybe more physical than Crokes, and I'm sure they'll be trying to impose their physicality on it. Yeah, it's a tough one here, because as I said to you, like Mullins gave Ballyhale a great game, as John, I'm sure, was at that game with 2 caps on a couple of years ago. Yeah. They were until down the stretch. It was Ballyhale pulling away down the stretch. Mullins gave him a great game for 55 minutes. Crokes, it's still a bit of an unknown at provincial level what exactly they can do. So I'd probably be just about stumping for Mullinses in this, to be honest with you, just because but they probably have that bit more experience at provincial level in recent years. And the fact that they got over that big gap, was it 13 or 14 weeks, 14-week gap, I think they had to the
Ferns game.
They got over that. I'm sure they would have been sore for a few days after, maybe more so than normal, and they'll be primed and ready to go. But to me, that's probably the game of the weekend, because I'd say it's the hardest game of any of the real big games of the weekend. It's the hardest game to call, but it probably just about tipped the scales in Mullins' favour, just about now.
Are you going to talk about the ponies?
Well, I obviously work a small bit in racing, but John, you've had some time of it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think she was outside. She was the outsider in the Arkle when she won, and she was totally written off in the Champion Chase when she won in 2021. Put the kettle on. You've had some time with her. Just talk me through the emotions of, you know, going to Cheltenham with a chance, and then when you see her jumping the last with, what was it, Shakin Swan, Nuba Negra last year. Unbelievable buzz.
Yeah, I sure look. You couldn't, like, we've had horses, they're ponies all our lives since we were young, and riding ponies with the hurling and so on, and show jumping and hunting and whatever, you know. So we bought a mare before her. The uncle came back from America, and 5 of us went in, and then she won a couple of races, but the tendons went in her, so she went for breeding then. So we bought this one out of that then. Yeah, I'll look at it. Sure, we I think we ran in a grade 3 novice in Tipperary. I think in the end of is it end of September or early October, and we were hoping she'd place or whatever, but she just got pipped on the line by Willie Mullin's horse. And it was over 2.5 miles. So the crowd of us head over to Cheltenham every November, anyway, just for the racing, you know, kind of a holiday. And so Henry knew we'd go over, and he says there's a 2-mile race there in November, and he said she wanted to go a bit faster there, so we drop her back to Sue. And I said, well, if you think she's good enough, we'll go, you know, we'll be there anyway. So anyway, she won the Arkle trial there, and she was the outsider of the 4. There was only 4 in that race, and she was the outsider of that as well. Nichols had a favourite and that, but she won that. So then she'd had a busy summer, so Henry said we'd leave her off and bring her back for the Arkle then after winning that. So yeah, but there was no one talking. I think Henry had the favourite notebook. Right, and there was no one talking about our one at all. I think the brother was on the phone to him, and he said, "Geez, should we go for the handicap?" He says, "No one talking about her at all." And he said, "Oh no." He says, "She's after beating half that field already." So he said, "We let her take her chance." He said he'd be disappointed if she wasn't in the first 4 or 5 anyway, you know. So but look, you never dream of, like, I remember being there looking at her coming up the hill. Facker Dudery made a mistake. The 2 of them came around the bend together, and they were kind of clear of the rest, and Facker Dudery got into the bottom of the second last, and she got 2 or 3 lengths there, and she just plugged on up the hill then, like Stapleton there, as dogged as you like.
A bit more class now than Stapleton.
A bit more class.
I'm not carrying top weight like me.
What's it like when she crosses the line and going down the chute and the way back in and welcome?
Yeah, I should look. I'd say it's what any player wins an All-Ireland on the field feels. You know, you're on top of the world, you know, and you know, we had a few drinks or whatever afterward, but you're like, whatever you drink, it wouldn't affect you. You were just you were drunk on joy or whatever anyway, you know. So it was just it's unbelievable feeling, and like, you know, I remember we went over there, I don't know, 5 or 6 years before that, and it was our first time over, and we stood at the top of the hill there, a few of us, and we said, "Geez, imagine if you had a runner here," you know. And there we were 5 years later, leading in the Arkle winner, you know. It was mad stuff, you know, mad stuff.
And just even that, Shane, I know you wouldn't follow the racing that much, but like, there's three real main races at Cheltenham: Champion Chase, Champion Hurdle, and the Gold Cup. And this man was involved in the winner of one of them. Like, it's unbelievable. It's fairy tale stuff to have a Champion Chase winner. When you look at the likes of the horses that have won it, like Moscow Flyer, Azerti Up, Sprinter Sacre, and Earhart put the kettle on. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. Actually, look, it's unbelievable. And even like, you know, you had JP there with Facker Dudery and the Arkle, you know, coming over, and he came over and shook hands with my mother straight after the race, like an absolute gentleman, I have to say, you know, and said, well done. And even we have a picture there in the winners of Just Everyone beside the horse. And in the background, you can see JP looking over and a big smile on his face. Actually, I'd say he was delighted to see, you know, just kind of not normal people winning it, you know. Yeah, and like the champion chase, you look at it, it's it's unreal. Yeah, it's fairy tale stuff. That's all you can describe it as, you know, fairy tale stuff.
You sold her, John, and you've reinvested, I believe. That horse was a third. Am I right on debut?
Third in Cork on Sunday. Yeah. And so we buy a 3-year-old filly kind of every year there in the Goffs Land Rover sale. So we have 3 there kind of at the moment. Yeah. So we sold her. We have there's one running there this evening in Thurles as well, but that's the other one. Yeah, and then the other one's only young. So we have 2 in training there at the moment between us. Yeah. So so hopefully she'll run well now and show something for the future anyway, you know.
Yeah, one of your former players here, Shane Holden, says that's Smiley's skipping the principals conference in January for the Gordon meeting.
Principals conference moved this year. Yes.
The day that stops the county, the Tayestes.
The Tayestes, we normally go
VIP
there.
tickets for Cheltenham?
If we have another one there, I'll bring along Shane.
It's always looking for a freebie, John.
You can surely, we're lunch break here. You can surely flash the media badge now at this stage.
So Ballyhale anyway to win this weekend.
Look, you'd be disappointed if they were beaten, but the Naas has definitely put up. I wouldn't have it as the odds suggest. I'd say Naas has definitely put up a good fight, and our lads will have to react to whatever is thrown in front of them, you know. But they haven't been found wanting today, so I'd be hopeful that they will, you know. So, but I don't think it'll be as clear cut as people are saying, you know. So.
Yeah. All right, Smiley, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be chatting to you again soon. We'll be sneering via text later, no doubt.
Okay, sound lads.
Cheers, John.
Take care. Bye.
So that's Smiley there. Enjoyable old stuff there. But I was just thinking about Naas. Like, they do have that Croke Park experience. They won an Intermediate All-Ireland earlier this year at Croke Park, beating Kilmoyley. The likes of Brian Byrne and James Burke, they were only playing in Croke Park not so long ago. So they know the stage as well. But, you know, Ballyhale, they've all played here so often. A game like this, it's just another staging post on the way to where they eventually want to go. Whereas I'd imagine within the Naas ranks, this is a huge deal.
Oh, 100%. At least they won't be daunted by Croke Park, as you said. Their biggest day ever was in Croke Park, so they won't be daunted by that. They're a mobile side as well, a quick side, so it should suit them. Listen, it's obviously going to suit Ballyhale as well, because they've pace to burn nearly everywhere, and will use that space for their benefit. But listen, this is going to be probably a bit of an education for Naas. Like, I'm not being disrespectful. Like, I'd be amazed if it's not double figures. Been honest with you, because Ballyhale, look, clock put it up to them for 20 to 25 minutes, and Leinster final end up getting beaten by, was it 27 points? That, like, once they get a run on you, and they will get a run at some stage, they have too much class not to get a run on you. But it's going to be an education for Naas. You're going to potentially take a few shellackings along the way if you want to learn. But I think they'll give it a good rattle and give as good as they get for stages of the game. But just on here, we've a comment in here from ML89. He just said Ballyhale going nowhere too. When your oldest player has just been nominated for Hurler Year, it's not about saying outside TJ, Colin, Richie, Holden, the rest are a young team, most of them 24 or younger. Like they are, like Owen Cody's one of the new leaders of the team, Adrian Mullin, and you're talking about guys that are, 23 or under, or 24 or under. Dara Corkin, Ronan Corkin, not sure what Brian Cody's status is. I think hopefully he'll be back from injury fairly soon. He's bulked up a lot even as well. And you have the lads like Niall Shortall and Killian Corkin and these boys coming in as well. They're going absolutely nowhere. And listen, they're in serious form, and I'd be surprised if they don't put the foot to the throat of Naas at some stage in this game and potentially pull away. Probably win by, I'm looking at 10 to 12 minimum, being honest with you. And it could be a tight game for stages, but Ballyhale will do what Ballyhale do, and I'd imagine when they get the sense of blood, they'll go for the throat and hit a couple of goals, and it'll be lights out then.
Yeah, you'd certainly be hoping for a competitive game, but it's really difficult to make a case for that. We've patiently had waiting in the wings Rory Hickey, inter-county referee, and of course Éireog Ennis clubman, not Naas. We'll be chatting a bit more hurling in a while, but we're going to jump over to the football side of things. Rory, delighted to have you on the show. How are things heading into this weekend? Éireog against Cairns O'Rahilly, and there's a Munster club final place in the offing.
There is, yeah, and last year we spoke about bonus territory when we won the championship last year, but our lads have really knuckled down, and we're hoping to make an impression in Tralee now on Sunday morning.
Yeah, and talk to us about Éireog and the year that they've had. Obviously, it went on for long spells with the hurling and the football. The hurlers losing to Ballyhale in the county final, but the footballers are still here. And can you talk to us about how much of a crossover has there been between the two panels?
Yeah, massive crossover, and all dual clubs. I tell you, it's very hard to do. I live right across the road. I'm sitting in my kitchen here now, but if I went up to the top of the stairs, I can watch most matches. Although they're building a couple of houses across the road, they're getting in my way a little bit of the view. But
objection, I'd say, yeah, big time.
I'm hoping to buy one of them, lads. There's no objections. But yeah, I grew up the other side of Éireog, just the other side of it. So I've been with him since I was 4 years of age, since I was able to go up there. And
Rory, there's a small bit of crackling from your headset. Maybe just pull out the earplugs altogether and unplug them, because that might be causing the crackling.
Okay, how's that now?
That's a little bit better. There's a small bit of crackling nonetheless. Hopefully it clears up. But yeah, sorry, continue on there.
Yeah, so been around the club all my life. Skipped off to America there for a bit of madness when I was a young fella, but back around again. And when I was a young lad, it was predominantly hurling was the sport, and I say predominantly hurling. We haven't won the hurling since 1990, and we reached the final again this year, but. We won't even talk about that. Ballyhale out the road, the noisy neighbours out the road, they know how to close out games, and Tony Kelly and co did the same as they've been doing to a lot of teams, and whereas we didn't, they did close out the game. And so attention switched to football. Then after that, we're fairly good at that with Paul Madden involved. He's been there for a good few years, and we managed to win the championship again this year. But it's very, very hard to do. It's hard. Like we've about 12 guys that swap over between hurling and football. And we have a couple of predominant hurling guys, inter-county guys, like David Reedy there. Liam Curry does he does focus on his hurling. But they've skipped back to the football now. Came on, made an impression the last day against the Nair over in the park. But one thing that's really helped us out, lads, I don't know how many clubs in the country have had a go at this, but our chairman, he got wind of this one club model, where you join up all the associations within the club. We if you think about it, across the road from us now, we had an underage structure, and we had a chairman, and we had a secretary of all the underage structure. Then we had an LGFA structure with another chairman or chairperson or whoever. And I was looking after the camogie side of things. I was chairman there for a while, and then we had the chairman of our own club. So we actually we contacted Croke Park, and we had a couple of lads that came out for a club in Limerick and told us how they went at it. So we adopted this one club model. We brought all the facets of the club in together. So now, financially, first of all, we'll take a family there with 3 or 4 kids that are attending across the road. They were paying membership to LGFA, they're paying it to the Camogie Association, and then their own club. Now they pay one fee, and that's divided out. So, and how that works down the line then is the fundraisers, the church gate collections, and the fundraisers, and whatever else you got, SPQs, big in every club, and whatever else you got, that gets divided up along the line. But you know what? I didn't know people that were in the underage structure. I didn't know people that were in the LGFA. There's a big population here in Ennis, But now I kind of know them all, because we all go to the one executive meeting, and you're kind of subsections of the main club, and our chairman, Jim Cooney, then takes a report from each section. But it's really helped us out. And none so much there with both managers. Matty Shannon looks after our hurling setup, and Paul Madden, as I said, he's there with Peter Cosgrove, Shawnee Buckley from Limerick, who's been a massive addition to Éireog, and they work with each other. So if it's a hurling week, Matty gets first dibs on the lads. He works away with them, and it's a football week, vice versa. But it's worked out for us, really, really has. Not for everyone, but it's something I'd recommend clubs have a go at.
It's gas, because clubs have just taken this upon themselves. So we've been talking for the last good while about how LGFA, GA, Camogie Association should be under the one umbrella, and I suppose that's moving. Well, I don't know how long it will take, but it's definitely moving closer to becoming a reality. But I definitely know there's a couple of Offaly clubs have done it. Listen, the GA is a community, so like the ladies football and camogie, they're also communities. So if you're pulling all that community in together, I think it's definitely better for, you know, the locality, and everyone is coming together. Definitely bonds the community a bit better, and definitely, especially as well, when you're saying there about Rory, about the crossover of players as well. It's that helps too. And like, there's brothers and sisters that are playing. They're at least playing under the one umbrella now, so to speak, as well. So I definitely think it's not simple now. It takes a bit of coordinating too now. In fairness,
it's not simple, but it really revitalised the club. And we went about putting together one of these 5-year plans then, and we had the Uachtaráin down and the whole lot, and we had a big day out for him, showed him around the facilities across the way. Like, our clubhouse was built in the 1980s, 1982, so we have 2 dressing rooms there for the population. We've over membership of 1,000 people, like, you know, so we've our stand built, and we've a few other things done. We upgraded our all-weather facility. So the next thing now is a gym. Everyone speaks of a gym and new dressing room. So we've gone about that. We've written to the members, and it's up to them to take it on. But, you know, now it's coming from one direction. It's coming from, you know, I don't like to say the top table, but it is coming from the top table, and it's aimed down, right down to if you have a 4-year-old involved. This gym and these new dressing rooms and facilities, these are really going to help him or her as they grow up along. So, you know, that's the next phase in our development. We were going to do it first, but then look, things didn't work out. But it's happening now. It's becoming a reality. The old bit of planning, lads, has got over the line. And sure, look, it's all about the finance now. And don't talk to me about the price of building material, but we'll get it done somewhere. There's enough of lads around, and we get help from a major builder there in the club. Hopefully he'll be able to come and help us again, and the rest of us will give a hand as well. It's something we need. The town needs it. Space is tight. If you've been into Ennis, you know, when you drive into Ennis there, you meet St. Flannan's College. So we have the use of a pitch off St. Flannan's College. We rent that. We have one other full-size pitch, and then we have an all-weather facility, and it's busting. Come the summer, Friday evening, the kiddies are there. Monday evening, if there's a match on, it's absolutely brimming with people. But it's great to see from when I grew up to, you know, to where it is now. We're flying it.
Just on this weekend, Rory, some opportunity for Ennis this weekend. Like, you're coming up against a Kerrins O'Reilly's team that were beaten by, I think it was a cumulative 35 points in their 3 Kerry Senior Football Championships. They won championship games. They won the club championship, obviously, but they've probably been off for a while. You wouldn't exactly say you're coming up against a team that's, you know, been thinking about Munster glory. You kind of grounded out the last day, ground out the county final as well. It is a big opportunity to be in potentially be in a Munster final, and with Nemo gone, and no disrespect to Clonmel or whatever, but Nemo were probably favourites for Munster before that game. So it is a massive opportunity knocking for you.
Oh, it is, yeah. Super opportunity. You spoke about the county final. If you'd attended the county final, you'd nearly look for your money on the way back out the door. You know, it was not for the purists anyway. It was one of those defensive ones. They all got over the line, but in its time, it got to the final, you know, playing that sort of style, defensive style, and it worked for him. But Earl barely got over the line, 9-6 for a finish. The last day against the Nair, one of those grinding out ones again, 2 each at half time. But in that third quarter, Earl pushed up, you know, this full like a basketball turn, full court press, right up, made the Nair kick it out to the middle of the field with 2 massive men in the middle of the field, and we were able to win possession from there. We scored 3-5 between the 12th and 15 minute, the game was put to bed. So, you know, they rode out the time then. But it is a massive opportunity. You spoke about Clonmel and Nemo. My last Munster club final seems so long ago was when Clonmel made the breakthrough on a really wet and windy afternoon down in Mallow. And actually one of the guys that was playing with Clonmel, Luke Moore, he played wing back from that day. He's married and living to a sister-in-law of mine up here now. So to be... Yeah, he's tagging out for our senior team. He doesn't make the start in the lineup now, but he's there anyway as a sub. So to be super if we could push one more and maybe get a look back against his whole club, we'll see. But it is an opportunity to go down, lads. But I was looking at the team sheet there, McKieran's O'Reilly's. Just looking down here, you know, David Moore and Tommy Walsh, Barry John Keane, Coffey there, Jack Savage. They're no slouches, and they haven't been standing around, you know, wintering up and watching the World Cup and on the takeaways and stuff. They'll be looking to press on in this, you know. And eventually, you know, when their county championship didn't go so well, they knew that they had this club scene coming up. But we have a couple of good guys in defence there, inter-county guys. We're able to leave them at their chosen position for Clare. Manus Doherty plays in the corner for us, plays in the corner for Clare. Kieran Russell, He's out in the wing there, breaks the line a lot for us. We're able to leave him at wing back as well. Darren O'Neill in the middle of the field. And then we've two super forwards. If they can get moving at all, Gavin Cooney there and Mark McInerney. I look out my left-hand window and Mark's house is up there. He's the son, if you can remember, Francis McInerney that lived at the Munster Club for or the Munster Championship for Clare way back in '92. His son, he's a super player. When they're moving, it's hard to stop them. But when you're playing against a blanket defence and things like that, which we have been all year, it's hard to get the ball in the back of them. But patience would be a thing for your all. Try and sustain the first 15 minutes, see how they go, see how the matchups go. And if you can get the ball boomed out to the middle of the field, it's going to be unbelievable to see David Moore and Darren O'Neill contesting for balls in the middle of their park. Yeah.
Two giants. Do you know, there's just some breaking news there in the last little while, Rory, and from a refereeing point of view, I'd be curious to see your thoughts on it. So there was that Naomh Barogue versus Oulart Dabala brawl that involved players, mentors and supporters. I think we all saw the videos in recent times, but I see the Examiner have a report saying that they understand a minimum of 6 bans have been issued to players, and at least one supporter member may also have been recommended for a penalty. Some players have received bans up to 12 months. In terms of like things coming to a boil or going over the top, you know, either in the stands or on the field, what's it like as a referee? Are things getting better or worse? Is social media just highlighting what was already there and things haven't really changed?
Yeah, it was already there. That's always been there. And debate, you know, no disrespect to any county official in any county in the country, but what they try to do is bury stuff like that, and that happened years ago, and it is still go on. But now everyone has a phone in their pocket. And decent phones as well. Whereas you might have had a sketchy video years ago, you're going to get 6 videos from every angle now. So it's been highlighted more. But that's a positive as well. Like if you can highlight it more, maybe it won't happen as much, you know. One instance, that type of thing happened to me once in a hurling match over in Cusick Park. And there was hurleys flying, and it was a stage where I just had to stand back, you know. I used to ref both when I was reffing here in Clare. It's scary. It's scary if you're the referee and you're expected, and they're all looking at you as, how are you going to stop this? And sometimes you just can't, you know. But it's not nice to watch. Yeah, I mean, I'm sick in the face of looking at stuff like this happening in the GA. Sport I love, sport I grew up with, and it descends into that chaos, you know. It's not nice, but I think, to be fair to the Uachtaráin, he's trying to grab a hold of this and trying to get it all the way down to grassroots level. But it has to start with education. You know, it has to start with the 4 and 5 year olds. Like they 4 and 5 year olds try every sport, don't they? You know, 4, 5, 6, they try everything. They'll go and play tennis, they'll go and play rugby or whatever. So they go to the soccer match, and that's not so great. They're screaming at the ref. And they go to the GA match where their mammy and daddy are absolutely bawling the ref out of it from the start to the finish. But they go up tennis rugby club up the road and they go over the wall. No one speaks to the referee. No one speaks to the referee bar the captain, and that's it. You know. So if they can get that down to grassroots level and get it started inside in the schools, it's going to be a generational thing. It's not going to be a quick fix. But I think they realise that I only got to retire last Friday week. Would you believe that? As I haven't reffed a match since a Hogan Cup final, Naas and Enniskillen in 2019 was my last match. And you know, there was a global pandemic went on and whatever. So, and I got the bit of slate there the other day. Very proud of it there. It's in a prominent place when you come in the front door. But I only got to retire the other night, and we were all up there. I was sitting at the table next to Dickie Murphy there from Wexford, and Willie Barrett there on the table next door, and I didn't know them lads over the year, and we were just talking about it, and they agreed with me. You know, it was always there, but it's a generation thing. It's going to take years to fix.
And do you get a sense that there's an appetite in the GA to go down that the road that rugby has gone down, in terms of like captain is the only person who speaks?
Yeah, well, you know, something has to be done. They've tried playing with the playing rules for the last 15, 20 years. I'm old enough to remember where you couldn't kick the ball back into your own half, and you couldn't do more than 3 hand passes, and then the referees going around counting hand passes and everything. But try something with the discipline now. You know, try something different. Like you'll get the argument from the hardcore lads that'll tell you that, oh, rugby's a professional sport. We'd never attain anything like that. Look, when I started in GA and you go to an inter-county game, you got a flag and you're on the sideline. Now we're all mic'd up, we're speaking as good as we're speaking now. Technology has moved on. And you know, the disciplinary system has to move on as well. You know, how many times have we seen lads get suspended and they're overturned inside I'm not going to say a courtroom, but it's like a courtroom. Every player arrives at a barrister and a solicitor now, and they've combed through the rules of GA. They need to scrap that first of all, scrap the disciplinary system, scrap the way they do it, and go back to basics. But it's going to take years to sort out. But I think it's something they can do, and it's something they have to do, because other sports are laughing at us. So, okay, let's take the parent that's arrived to Ennis, and they've moved down because Ennis is between Limerick and Galway, and their little Mary or the little Johnny starts with their Ogue across the road. But they're trying those other sports around Ennis that are there, and one match above an Ogue descends into chaos, and they're kicking the living chases out of each other out in the pitch. They're going, no, I'm not going to do that. So the G are going to lose out, and kids are going to go off and play rugby because there's better discipline in it. Or they're going to go off and play tennis. So the G are competing with other sports. That's the point I'm making. And if they don't start competing in the disciplinary ranks, they're going to lose the kids and lose them early on.
And just something that you said there, Rory, as well, the disciplinary system as well, even how covert it all is. Like, it's so hard to find out. I don't know how many times I've, rang a county chairman or secretary about some big brawl in some county. Okay, a probe has been launched, investigation has been launched. When you go to try and find the result of that probe, it's just, I have a carpet here in front of me, and it's just underneath that, and you cannot find it, and no one will tell you. And you'll find out maybe a year after that some fella got a 48-week ban or someone got a 96-week ban, but it won't be publicised. They don't want to publicise it. Like, you get, Shane, I'd say, when was the last time you got an email from the DRA? We might get something from the DRA maybe every 3 years, but not every case. It's such a weird kind of disciplinary system. And something I'd just like to ask you as well about, you said about appeals being overturned. How much of a kick in the teeth is that to a referee when you make a call and you're happy with that call and you stand over that call, and then all of a sudden, Friday night it comes out before some big game that appeal has been overturned, because it is undermining your responsibilities, your stature as well. And like, I don't know how many times there's been some amount of successful appeals in the last couple of years. I can't remember the last appeal that failed, to be honest with you. And it does denigrate the referee's authority.
It does, of course. I'll tell you a good one now in a minute, but any referee that tells you that they're not upset by them issuing a red card and it getting overturned is telling lies. Of course, sure. Kicks you in the teeth. You walk up the street, you walk over to the jail, your man got off, and they're all laughing at you. I was sitting in, I was after going from Shannon to London, and I was sitting in Heathrow, and I was waiting for a plane to go to the North American Games. They were on in San Francisco. The Sunday before, I was lining for Morris Deegan above in Croke Park. You'll remember this incident, lads. And Diarmuid Connolly went out with the fist once, twice. Do you remember that? Deegan was reffing. I was straight across from it. So I spoke to Morris. He came over for the chat, and he put off Diarmuid Connolly. You remember that one? So, who
was that against, Rory? Sorry.
All-Ireland football semi-final. Donegal was it? Can't remember.
Oh, yeah. 14.
Remember,
it was 14.
So it was right in front of the 21, in front of the Hill 16. He went into the chest, into the face with double fist action. So,
sorry, it was the 2011 semi-final. Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
I was lying for Morris anyway. So Morris rang me. I was sitting in the airport. I thought he was ringing to wish me well. I says, have a good week now in America. You'll be grand. So I was going out to ref the North American Games. He says, your man is after getting off. He says he's going to play in the All-Ireland. I called it. Morris said he's back to him at the time. So, we thought we'd made a good call on the day, and that was the start of it. That was the start. Well, maybe not that incident, but around that time was the start of the high profile. He'll get off. And you kind of knew, and there was even a motion went to Congress one time that no player should miss an All-Ireland final, be it hurling. Do you remember that one? That was floating around. But that came up at a referees meeting in Croke Park. And we said, lads, so he cuts the head off a guy, right? If he's a hurley in his hand, or he boxes him clean into the jaw, and he'd miss it.
I'd be terrible if he missed that.
Be awful if he missed. And that's the mentality, but that's the problem that the GAA have. And that mentality creeps into it. And no due respect to any of the guys that sit in these committees that work so hard for the GAA, it's not them at all, and it's not personal towards them. It's the system. That system is broken. I heard Pat McInerney speaking, I don't know what program he's on there a couple of months ago, and he's right. He's dead right. System's broken, needs to be scrapped, start again. Attitude is broken, needs to be scrapped. Where do kids take that in? Where do they sponge that into their brains? Right into primary school. I was on with Darren Frell there for Sunday Sport when I retired, and the lad of the Amaras, and we were speaking about that. And Brian Gavin came up with a super idea. Brian was same as me now. We were heading out the gap, lads coming up along, and we were heading for the road. But he had a super idea that when lads like me retire, that the GA take them on not a part-time basis, but just give them their expenses. Send them into the schools one morning a week and bring them out, show them, I don't know, referee their little games after the training session. Maybe there's a games development officer in the school or something like that, and then they have a face. So then they see, back in the day, then they see Brian Gavin, or then they see Barry Kelly, or even Morris retired now last Friday week. They see him, here's a GA referee. He spoke to me, he's friendly. So they go to their under 12 game or whatever on a Friday evening. They mightn't see me, or they mightn't see Deegan, or they mightn't see the boys, but that was the ref that was in during the week, and the referee speaks to them before the game, maybe at their under 12 or under 14 game. But a link is made from when they're 4 or 5 years of age inside in the school. We've a games development officer now at the moment, Keane O'Dea, plays for Clare. His club is Kilfenora. He does hurl with us, but he's been a revelation, an absolute revelation. We spoke about it at a load of AGMs. Keane goes to all the schools around, and then he comes into your Oak. He's attracting kids in. They don't call him, he's Coach Keane now. He's not Keane O'Dea. He's Coach Keane, but something like that, and some sort of a basis on a refereeing level, that you see the referee before your first interaction with a referee is up at under 12s or under 14s. Mammy and Daddy already have their impression in their brain. They start screaming at the guy, and then the players start screaming at the guy. They think it's okay because Mammy and Daddy's screaming at something like that. A bit of deep thinking from the GA. There's some super people involved in it, but they have to do something else because they just lose the players. The mum and dads will take them away, or there'll be a bad experience for a boy or a little girl. There'll be some bust up and they go, I'm not going to play in that game anymore.
And they'll lose the referees as well, Rory, because no one's going to want to do it as well. Like you see it now, like you say it to anyone that gets involved in refereeing, you say, fair play, I probably wouldn't do it myself. You must be mad, because what's thrown at you on a given day is, some days it'll be fine. If it's a one-sided game or whatever, then there's other games, and it's open season for what can be thrown at you, said to you. Do you know what I mean?
I'd love to see a stat. In different counties around the country that how many guys or girls started refereeing and lasted more than one season. I'd love to see it, because I know in Clare, I can walk around the town and pick out 5 or 6 guys and girls that had one bad experience and left. And good, solid referees. We used to do the foundation level courses when we were serving referees. They sent us off there with a tutor from the Munster Council, or you'd have someone, there used to be a crossover. Leinster guys used to come over, and you'd be there with the tutor, but the new referees would have a face. But what I'm saying, that should start at primary school level. But I'd love to see how many, they'd have a list of those people that started and how many are left now. When I started, I got injured. I was playing senior football and hurling across the road here, and I got injured. And I was out for a while, and I was sent off by the club chairman at the time, Mike Mack, my neighbour next door, sent me down to do the course. And within 4 years, I'd refereed the county hurling final. 2 years later, the county senior football final. And I was 15 years refereeing inter-county football. Then they decided at the time they needed more inter-county football lads. So I turned into a career referee. I wasn't the greatest player, but I turned into a career referee. But that's not happening now. They're speaking to guys, maybe they're subs on their senior team or on their junior team, but if you can make refereeing attractive some way, more. Like, I was 20 years and all over the world. I had a great time doing it, but it was a different era. The Irish Examiner or the Irish Independent or the Irish Press, remember them days? I was around for those days. That was all we had to worry about on a Monday, and what was written about you. And it was just the journalist that was there. That was it. That was all that was there. About 5 or 6 journalists. It was a box office. They sat in the box, and that was just the opinion. How did this guy get on? And they used to rate him. But now you're getting lambasted from decision to decision to decision. Twitter is just absolutely destroying lads. And I don't know how they're going to make it more attractive, but they need to start at the start, rip up the book, and start again.
I presume, like, any time you make a decision and there's something written about you in a paper, there's people more or less coming to you saying, "Hey, did you see what was written about you?" Now, number one, do you remember any particular incidents when things were said about you online or in papers and it got to you? And, like, in general, did you ever think about quitting refereeing because of the treatment you'd be getting?
Yeah, you'd be low when it happens. There was one journalist described me as the Robin Hood of GA refereeing. I was robbing from the rich, you give it to the poor. I don't know what he meant to that, but there was one guy. There was one, we'll say, member of the public. I don't know, would you even call him a member of the public? I did a Munster football final, and I'd be on about Shawnee Buckley there. he was playing for Limerick at the time. He's involved in our own club, and it was Limerick and Cork down in Cork at the time, and they gave a penalty to Cork in good faith during the first half. And if I had my time back and telling the truth, I probably wouldn't have given it. It was on the softest side, and I stuck the 2 arms out and I gave a penalty to Cork. Limerick were on top at the time, put Cork back into the game, and after that, they were on my back after that. But you know, I was a young lad at the time. I was after doing All Ireland minor final 08, so it was 09, you know. So there was no Twitter, there was no nothing, it was the written word. But some guy went out of his way to cut out paper clippings, as you do, to take words out of paper clippings, stick them onto a page, find, you know, I'm an electrical contractor, and my dad was before, so find the outlet's address and posted that off to the mother. So the mother, I came in or whatever one morning, the mother says, "There's post there for you, Rory." I said, "Open that, man, we see what's in it." And sure, I can't repeat here. People wouldn't like what I'd have to say, but I won't repeat it. But my mother read that, you know, and at that time she asked me, "Rory, is this worth it?" You know. So I actually handed that down to the Gardaí and Ennis at the time, you know, it was that serious. But Mick Curley was our chairman at the time. Remember Mick from Galway?
Yeah.
Long time I was refereeing inter-county football, and just Mick spoke to me in the hour on the phone for an hour, you know, and I was really thinking about jacking that time, but gathered myself, and things went well after that. Did an All-Ireland club final, you know, Connacht final, and went all over the world with it, and had good times, and great friends out of it. But yeah, that was the toughest I had to deal with. And you know, every inter-county ref in the country probably has a story to tell about that too. But now it's the old DMs and the Twitter, or what's said about them online and stuff. But you have to rise above it. But some lads sometimes it's very, very hard.
And on the flip side, what's the most enjoyable game you ever refereed? Like, is there games where, like, obviously you have to be diligent throughout, but was there ever a game when you were like, "This is unbelievable stuff here," and you've got the front row seat?
I did my, you know, you'll get your provincial final, and I did my Connacht football final, I think 2014, 2015. I was flying it. Spinning was a big thing around the country at the time. I'd lost a good stone. I've put back on since now. But, I was flying it. I went up to do Galway and Mayo above in McHale Park, and the black card had been introduced. There was a penalty in the game. It was a black card. But just as I don't mind telling you, I was good that day. Get down the road anyway. But you love this though. Get down the road anyways. Happy as a pig in BJ's. Is up the town with Mrs. Hickey on the Sunday night, and we had a few beers, and off to work on Monday, and she was making me the favourite dinner Monday evening. The bit of bacon and cabbage appeared around 6 o'clock. I don't know how many kids I had at the time, 1 or 2 maybe, and next thing there was a knock at the door. I told you I'm living across the road from the GA club. No one had shown up for the under 14 kiddies match across the road. Sure, I was in a tracksuit out of the working gear, and cock of the hoop, I was after flying it the day before. So it's over here, playing whoever. Can't remember who they were playing. And ref the match away, ref in the tracksuit kids are running up and down. It was grand, you know. So the secretary of the opposition club came out, and she was shaking my hand, and signed a bit of paper for him. She said, "Jesus Christ," she said, "we've had some guys here and they've been abominable. You weren't too bad, you know." She said, "You might have a future in this crack." She says, will I give you the number? Will I give you the number of the county secretary? You should give him a ring. There's a course coming up there in a couple of months. You should apply for it and do it. And the chairman coming behind, I had played football with up along. Sure, he fell over the ground. He was. I just said, "Look, you know," I said, I might think about it, you know. So, I'd done great the day before, but I was really brought back down with hurt the day after.
That's the GA for you now, without a doubt.
That was the GA. Yeah, she wasn't watching the Connacht final today.
Just in terms of then, like, where Aero Guinness are going, like Gavin Cooney, what a performer he is on the football side of things. David Reedy, obviously excellent player as well. You've lots of very good players, but Shane O'Donnell getting an All-Star this year, and obviously he did the business back in the 2013 All-Ireland. But it must have been some honour after the tough time he'd had to see him get that All-Star this year, and massively deservedly so.
Oh yeah, definitely deserved it. Like, after the concussion and stuff, if anyone knows Ennis, he lives out in Ballybeg, which is kind of just out the road a little bit of a crossroad between here and Dalo's Clarecastle, just next door to us, you know. And there was mornings there after the concussion, he wasn't working. Like, I'm looking into his screen here now. I don't know what he does for a living. He's a bit of a scientist. I can't explain to you, but he's a very, very intelligent guy. He spends a lot of time looking into screens, and he was suffering from a lot of headaches. He'll tell you that himself, you know. There he was walking up the road, and the mother and the dog every morning just for a bit of fresh air. And his brother had bought a house up the road and in a little lane at the back. He'd walk up to the brother, and I'd be going off to work if I was going down to Shannon working or wherever. So I'd be passing in the van, and I'd see him, and I'd give him the van and a big salute. But not that the lad looked depressed or anything, but that was hard to take for that guy. He's such an intelligent chap, and the conversation is so intelligent with him, But to come back, and if there was anyone in the country, lads, and that's your opinion of this, if there was anyone in the country that really deserved an All-Star, my God, Shane O'Donnell does. He's been carrying our lads on his back across the road hurling, but how many days for Clare was he left alone? How many days is he left alone above in that full forward line, and ball after ball pumped down on top of him? And and every lad roared when you go up and give him a hand. But he's changed his game. He's become so powerful in the air now and stuff. He's been a revelation. He's beautiful to watch. He's absolutely beautiful player to watch. And God, he deserved his All-Star. And he's one of our lads, and we're stones mad about him.
It's funny you should say it, Rory. We were talking before you came on about guys that had big hype and expectation about them, and they've lived up to it. Like, he scored 3-3 in an All-Ireland final, like absolutely hyped to the moon.
That was 2013, like.
Yeah, and he was like, I remember him being brilliant against Kilkenny in a Division 1 relegation final in 15, I think. Like, he's been brilliant for the decade since, and even taking in that concussion as well. How many All-Stars have you got in the club, actually?
That's a good question, yeah.
Because I was only thinking that was your first All-Star since when?
Seamus Durek.
The only man to win an All-Star to have not played a championship match in Croke Park, I think.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
You got them on the back of the league success, I think. Yeah, a couple of years. But I don't think he ever played a championship game in Croke Park. Yeah,
that's one for the Google machine now.
Yeah. Can I just ask you, Rory, before we let you go, off the top of your head, what would be the most misinterpreted rules within the GAA? For example, I was down at the Munster Club final last Sunday, and there was a line ball being taken, and I think it only went about 6 yards. And immediately in my head, I'm thinking, the ball didn't go 13, but the player just has to be back 13. Would I be right?
That's right.
Yeah. So what are other the square ball is like from a free. You cannot be like, it happens so often. The same mistakes are made the length and breadth of the country. Usually not a county GA, but what would be 2 or 3 of the most common rule misinterpretations?
The line ball one is you can tap it once your man is back 13 meters. He can come and collect it. So in underage games, you'd often see a young fella swinging at a ball and it going a couple of inches, but he can't touch it again. And that's the same comparison. What was the other one you mentioned?
The square ball. Yeah.
Square ball, yeah. To the common Joe Soap, square ball is a joke. Like in game football, there's 2 square ball rules. You can follow the ball into the square after the ball has been released, either from a hand pass. So, as a referee and an umpires, that was very hard to watch. You to watch who last released the ball. And, can he follow into the square? But from set play then, the old rule applies. You can't be in the square before the ball arrives, So there's 2 square ball rules in Gaelic football. But the one that really, like, people can't believe is if you're in possession of the ball and you're knocked to the ground and the ball spills out of your hand, you can box the ball away, right? The ball is on your hand, but you can box it away. And if that ends up going into the goal, it's a goal. But you cannot touch the ball on the ground, obviously, with your hands. We all know that from open play. But if you're in possession, you're knocked to the ground, the ball spills, you can box that ball away. And if it ends up inside the net, it's a goal.
But you can box it on the ground, Rory.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the strangest ones altogether, yeah.
And there's another one in hurling. If the ball is just flicked up, and say you can palm it into the net in hurling. Like
you can palm it into the net. If you're in possession in hurling, you catch the ball, you can touch that off the ground without being penalised to keep your balance.
Yeah, it's gas, like. It's all about knowing your rule book, like, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the other one,
I was never much good at that. I was very good at talking my way out of things. As you know, I can talk, and I talked my way out of it for 20 years.
And the other one, like, so, if you're running along the sideline with the ball, you can be outside the sideline, but as long as the ball is inside, you're okay. Because in rugby, if you're holding the ball and you touch the line, you're out.
It's all about the ball, and the whole of the ball has to be over the line. But you can't run outside the manager. You can't leave the field of play to gain an advantage as well. So, if it's a 65, you can't stand back at the chicken wire behind you and run in and bat the ball. You have to stay in the field of play. And the same applies up along that side and you're talking about there. You can't run around the back of the management to gain an advantage to go around the fella. If you stay in the field of play, it's a free against you. They're mad ones. They're absolute mad ones.
I've seen lads from a 65, and particularly a nippy corner forward. He might run it around the back of the goals. I've seen that, and I've never seen it pulled now either. One thing I have a bugbear with officials is so often now you see the second a lad goes near a sideline, it's a line ball. The flag is up because I don't know. It's just the second he goes near the line ball. It's a new thing. It's a new thing in recent years. It's like once they think he's within that vicinity, he or she, the flag is just up, and it drives me nuts because a lot of the time they're not. The ball is not out over the line. But
all of the ball has to be over the line. Yeah. That's it.
Mm.
But you might have a few eager linesmen think they should be reffing the match, mad to get that flag up.
Hold on a second now. You've teed me up for another one here. So with assistant referee, what do you think of assistant referees, or having one referee in one half or one referee in the other? Is it undermine? Like, is that difficult? Is it like if you have lads giving opinions, is that undermining your duties as a referee?
You remember the compromise rules? They took it out around the country. They went to Salthill, they went to Limerick. I was involved in all of those. I was either umpiring or I was doing the line. And you had an Australian guy in one half. I think McEnany was in the other half. The couple of times I was at it, and it worked absolutely brilliantly. And they had the communication, and they go, "You take it, Pat." I think Brent was the guy on the other side. "You take it, Brent." And they refereed in both halves. There was absolutely no problem. Now, that's been brought up numerous times, but it might boil down to expenses and money, whether you can afford a referee in both halves of the field. We're dealing with the fastest field game in the world in hurling. It's the fastest field game in the world. How one guy keeps up with it, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be the appetite for referees with the, guy in each half of the field. But what I have to tell you, and there is an appetite for, is, the way we have Hawkeye, right? So Hawkeye is in Thurles, Cork, coming to Belfast, and obviously in Croke Park, okay? I was lucky enough back in the day, Offaly, Kildare, my very first attempt at Hawkeye. So I was the first ref in the country to use
Peter
Hawkeye.
Cunningham, wasn't it?
Peter Cunningham, ended up centre back for Offaly, He shot about 6 or 8 feet wide, but I had an eager umpire down there. We weren't going out the gap without using Hawkeye that day. So I made the little the little square and the whole lot. But look, if you have a Hawkeye official sitting above in the booth, looking at 6 televisions, why couldn't you have a retired referee with him? Help out the guys. I don't like to be dragging up incidents. There was one with Conor Lane, David Goff, massive incidents. Frees given, not given. Okay? Why couldn't they get the word in the ear? Give the captain 3 calls. David, Conor, Rory. We need to have a look at this. Stop the play. Can you have a look at that? We think you've got that the wrong way, or you've missed something here. Crucial stages in the game. The technology is there. The people are there. And there's such an appetite for a bit of help for the referees at that level. I'm not talking about the first round of the championship now, above and side or whatever, but quarterfinal stages. They should all be in Croke Park from there on. It's crucial, like sponsors involved, players involved. They're putting their lives on the line. Help the referees a little bit more. The technology is in place. I don't know what, you can't call him a VAR official, call him something else. Put 2 retired guys up there, sensible guys that are not in competition. And you have to remember the super competition, not in competition to referee the match, the next match, or not in competition with the guy that's out in the middle of the field. Retires guys that have the welfare of GA refereeing in their minds. It's like I'm applying for a job here, lads, but I'm just saying
you're creating a job.
I have loads of jobs, but it could help, give each team, give them a chance, give them 3 calls. Rory, please, give the managers a flag to throw down American football style, or speak to the 4th official. It's not going to slow down the game. It's going to take 30 seconds. Let your man in the booth have a look at it from 3 angles, go, David, that free was actually the other way, or whatever. Some way of doing it anyway. The technology is there. Why not help them?
Particularly for really big calls. I was chatting to John Keenan. I have a piece in the paper with John tomorrow, and he's just saying there's key game decisions: a penalty, a sending off, and a goal.
I like that phrase, key game decisions.
Yeah. He's not talking about a free that was there that was 50-50 and saying, maybe you need to look at that. It's the calls that will define games. The people will talk about after whether he got it right
the
or
result
wrong.
each way.
Yeah, well, it's I put it this way: if James Owens had it back with that Aidan McCarthy decision, I'm sure, all that needed was 10 or 15 seconds for someone to clear it up for him potentially. Do you know what I mean? But that's a key game decision. That's a player going off.
We don't discuss that decision in Clare anymore. We're over it.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was a good call. It was a good call.
I didn't bring it up on purpose because you were Claire and he was Tip. It's like I'm the referee in the middle here between the two of you.
Yeah. But look, Rory, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on the show. Really appreciate you giving us your time. And sure, look, hopefully we'll be chatting to you down the line. And by the way, Enda Howard says 3 All-Stars from Aero Guinness.
There you go.
Colin Lynch and Shane O'Donnell.
Colin Lynch, yeah. There you go, yeah.
Okay, brilliant stuff, Rory. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, lads. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, Rory.
Yeah, and the comments coming in definitely do back up that Rory was an excellent guest there. An absolutely refreshing interview with some very good points. I agree with everything said. I refereed for several years in another code. I hope his thoughts are taken on board. That's from Joe Butler. And Neil M says, great interview, lads. When are the county panels normally announced? Looking for Michael's squad in Dublin. Michal Dunnews.
This last one here, Shane, just said, each year the players sign up. This is P-Well 74. I presume that's Patrick's well. Each year the players sign a membership form. They should also sign a form that they accept GA disciplinary process and not go to a civil court. Yeah, listen, that's a fair, like anything like that going to a civil court or something. I just think it's mad. I remember that Dermot Connolly case, and like you're talking high-powered barristers here to get somebody off to play a match when it was clear that it was a red. You know, I remember that he was really frustrated. That was the 8-6 game, and Donegal had them completely stifled, and he was just really frustrated, couldn't get any space to get a shot away, and like it was a red card offence, but he was cleared to play in an All-Ireland final after. I think after I think it was like 12:30 on the Friday night in the Regency Hotel. That was when the decision was made to play an All-Ireland final on the Sunday. But like, I can't think outside of John Milan getting that sent off years ago. Like, when was the last time someone didn't appeal? Like, it's just appeals everywhere. And there's been very few unsuccessful appeals in the last decade, I'd say, as well. But that was refreshing stuff. And you know what? It was great there as well. You learn a few bits, like, because sometimes we don't, there's not enough talk from referees. That's why I'd love if referees got the chance potentially to explain a decision or why they made a decision, because we're just left to our own devices to create our own narrative about it. But they have an opinion. They saw it this way. Sometimes, I'm just saying about particularly big games and key game decisions, I think potentially there should be an avenue there for them to explain why they made a call a certain way.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of touch on a couple of bits of news, and then we'll go back into talking about the different matches coming this weekend. So Mickey Hart, there was a lot of fanfare about this last week. He's obviously the Louth football manager at the moment, but there was talk of him becoming the new manager of Schlockneil. Now, that's not going to happen. Now, how close it was or otherwise, what a coup that would be for a club team. Obviously, the Glen have won the last couple of titles up there in Derry, so Schlockneil looking to get back on top. The other one is Lee Keegan. He's still undecided about 2023. He's 33 now at this stage. Do I feel up to another year, or am I ready for another year? Do I have everything in place that I can give everything for Mayo for another year? So there's a lot of big questions. I'll ask Kevin McStay and discuss it and see where that is. That was on the inside line. But yeah, I mean, surely Kevin McStay will be doing everything he can to try and persuade Keegan to stay on, because he's still one of their best players.
Everything and anything, I'd say. And by the sounds of that, to me, that's a case of Lee come back training at the start of the league, and we'll have you right towards the end of the league, and we're focusing really on championship. I think that's the way. He's had a long season, and he actually mentioned that on that pod with Alan Brogan, how long the season has been since from when they were beaten by Kerry, took a bit of a break, and then a long club campaign with Westport and all the fanfare winning the first county title. I just say I'd give him a bit of time. I'd give him a bit of time, and I remember Davey did that with Tony Brown, Milan, Shanahan, Ken McGrath. I don't think they played very little of the league one year, and they were down doing specific training programs, and they were to be back right, we'll say, on the 1st of April, to be back 100% right for the Munster Championship. When lads are a bit older, I do think you have to treat them differently, and if ever anyone has earned being, having maybe a different schedule than others at Intercounty, it's definitely Keegan, because he's the one man exactly what you are getting when he takes to the field, and that is blood and thunder from start to finish.
Yeah, no doubt. This weekend, on Saturday, in fact, Patrick Bonner-Maher, he's running the Clonakilty Marathon in aid of the Irish Cancer Society. Now, he was supposed to run it recently, but
he was busy winning the county title.
He was busy winning the county title and driving his team to it. So he's going to do that this weekend. Another thing to talk about is Dublin have been given the green light to build a 6.6 million centre of excellence at the former Hollystown golf course in the northwest of the county. That's going to be huge for them, because having that centre of excellence and being like, they already have Abbottstown, and I know places outside of Dublin also use that. And I think Dublin weren't actually training themselves out there, the senior footballers, certainly when it was being opened, because I think it probably wasn't I mean, you couldn't do things like quietly there because it's very wide open, so everyone could be looking at what you're doing. And remember that they had their gym
up to
equipment.
Inish Falls instead, out in the middle of nowhere.
But like they also had gym equipment that was initially out there in Abbottstown, but then when they weren't using it, they decided to pull that out of there. So that was a big issue at the time, if you remember, a couple of years ago. But having their own 6.6 million centre of excellence, and even Rory was talking about some of the building work they're doing down there in Ennis. Imagine the price of building materials at the moment. And I've definitely seen some clubs and maybe county teams talk about delaying certain building work because of the price of building stuff at the moment. So it's a huge project for them. So that's going to be huge for the coming players in the next few generations.
Yeah, 6.6 million centre of excellence. I think 4 floodlit pitches. One of them is going to have an all-weather or synthetic surface. I think they'll have 6 changing rooms. There's going to be a ball wall there. The county hurlers will have access to a smaller little all-weather area, I believe, as well. Probably a warm-up area. It'll probably be very like the Faithful Fields in Offaly. That's kind of what I'm imagining. And I think they have a tactics area or a tactics space, as I think it was called. That's out in Dublin 15 in northwest of the county. But like, listen, it'd be very hard to get a big green patch in the middle of the county. So they'd take it anywhere, really, to be honest with you. I think it's out by Tyrrellstown, I think, or very close to Tyrrellstown, I think. Because I think, remember when they acquired it at the end of 2020, Tyrrellstown GA Club, or I don't know, I think it's Tyrrellstown GA Club, that they were going to have access to it. And then there's one of those walking and running tracks around the perimeter. So I think if you have that, it's seen as a community asset as well. And I think funding is easier to get around that because it's a valuable thing for the community too as well. But yeah, definitely a very, very valuable thing for them.
Yeah, so this weekend we're going to have the replay of the Galway Senior Hurling Final. St. Thomas's and Loughrea drew last weekend. It was 117-20, and Loughrea led for, I think it was, if you include an injury time, I think I saw a stat, it was like 62 of 64 minutes they led, or 64 of 66, something like that. So they were in serious control for a lot of the game. Now, they lost Darren Shaughnessy to a second yellow card. I think it was for the final 10 minutes. And Thomas's really took over, and I think Aina Burke was very, very influential, got a nice goal. And then Loughrea fell behind in injury time. And the fact that they were down to 14 and still had the patience to move the ball up the field and get themselves a leveling score through Tiernan Killeen. Now, where are you at with this in terms of like underdogs, when they miss their chance, generally people say they'll be caught the next day. But surely Loughrea, and look, I'd say there's no lack of confidence traditionally within a club like Loughrea. They're going to come in thinking, lads, we proved last week we can beat these. Let's go out and finish off the job this week.
There's big parallels, I'd say, between Kilruane and Killadangan in the sense that the underdogs were the better team the first day and dominated for most of it, but they were the ones that ended up having to draw the game as well. Willie Cleary got the free for Kilruane and Tiernan Killeen got the point the other day after they missed the 65, I think, to go level. So it looked like they'd actually missed their chance. So I'd agree with you in the sense that they thought that they could match Thomas's, but now they've gone and proven that they can match Thomas's, particularly in that last 10 minutes when the odds were really against them, down a man. I think they had big confidence going into it. I think they'll have even more, and I don't think it's as cut and dry as the favourites got a shock the first day and will power on the next day. I think it's going to be very, very tight again. And I have a feeling just from I only didn't see the full game, saw a lot of the highlights. I just really liked Loughrea and I really liked the energy they had. I think they might just do it at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Neil Cleary, he'll have to be knocking over all his frees again. Martin McManus is going to have to be as devastating. Jamie Ryan is going to have to show the form that he's been showing all year. But like with the Thomas's lads, that generally they're going to deliver for you. And I suppose Shane Cooney came on the last day. Maybe that'll brought him on a bit more after his cruciate. Maybe he can have a bigger involvement here. You'd imagine that Dara Burke, Aina Burke, they'll all have decent games. Conor Cooney as well. Now, he only got a point from play, but, we were marvelling at his free taking at the weekend. It really was unbelievable. But, that should be a very, very entertaining game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a little bit of that. Just a reminder that we're brought to you by ourstore.ie, which is the official place to get merchandise from ourgame.ie. There's a huge amount of original stuff. Let's say you're a Kilkenny supporter. Maybe you wouldn't mind having that little T-shirt. Or if you're a Clare fan, look at this little effort that harkens back to 1995. So there's a huge amount of stuff. We're going to do it, is right. And then also we've got this coaching clinic coming up in UCD on December the 3rd. If you're into your Gaelic football and you're trying to kick on as a coach, you can just check the video link in the video description. There's a link to this. So it's going to be Stephen Poacher, Paul Galvin and Gerard Brennan. They're going to be there leading coaching on the day, and it's going to be a very, very good session. So really looking forward to that. Let's see, ML89 says Loughrea actually pushed on after the red card, went 4 up. Only last 5 minutes, St. Thomas's took over. Thomas's players weren't happy with extra minute and a half added on to the 3 minutes at the end. But I suppose you'd often have the case that within stoppage time, there will be more stoppages, so the referee will allow for that.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the most annoying things is when there's 3 minutes allotted or estimated, and someone picks up an injury for a minute and they blow it at the 3 minutes. Like that's an absolute killer. So listen, this is a fascinating game again. I think it's a poke of a wall again. I think Loughrea might just do it. They definitely have proven that they can dominate Thomas's at times in the game. And Thomas's came good, as they always will at the end. So Loughrea are probably going to have a bit more of a buffer even coming into that final stage. You would say the room for improvement is on the Thomas's side. We did say the same with Killadangan and Killarowan. We both tipped Killadangan the second time round, and you think that, and because they've won a county final in previous years, Thomas are a different animal now in the sense that they've obviously won 4 and are one of the best teams in the country. But yeah, I thought there might have been a shock last week, and I still think there might be this week.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about the Leinster Intermediate semi-finals. Bray Emmets are going to be against Naomh Barogue, so we're not entirely sure what the suspension situation is going to be with Naomh Barogue, but you'd probably have to favour Bray Emmets to win this game on the back of that. 4 in a row done in Wicklow. We've talked a few times about how former Wexford forward Paul Carley is over the team, and they beat St. Lazarians of Abbeyleix in the quarter-final. So, it would be hard to go against Bray Emmets on this occasion. Like, Bray regularly would play challenge matches against some of the senior teams in Dublin. Now, I'm not saying they'd win the games all the time and maybe wouldn't always be full strength against them. But I think because Naomh Barogue are operating in the 3rd tier in Dublin, they would fancy themselves to win this game.
Yeah, no, Bray are a good side, as you say. 4 in a row in Wicklow. John Henderson, son of the namesake Kilkenny legend, centre back, very, very good player. Christy Morehouse up front, tasty player as well. I think if he's able to get 3 or 4 scores from play, I'd probably be favouring Bray here. And again, talking about different bans and stuff like that, like, it's probably not going to come out who is banned, but there's a potential for a Naomh Barogue player or two or someone involved to be banned as well. I'd probably be favouring Bray regardless of suspensions here. So I'd probably Bray by 3 or 4 in that one for me.
Yeah, okay. And then in the junior this week, Trim against Tullamore is in this other semi-final. So Tullamore could easily have been in a relegation final against Kilcormac Calahi in the group, but they were kind of saved, got into the last 4, beat Father Dalton's the last time out. Father Dalton's being of Westmeath. And Trim, because of the confidence they'll have after going down to Nolan Park and beating Danesfort of, Richie Hogan fame, Paul Murphy and a couple of other good players there as well, they'll have huge confidence. What do you reckon with Tullamore?
That was a huge scalp, obviously, for Trim. Now the probably pressure is on a bit more. I believe they're favourites coming into this game this weekend, which I did find a bit surprising now, to be honest with you, because Tullamore, particularly at this level, they obviously played a senior final in 2009 against Ballyhale and were very good that day. And there's still some of them players still playing, the likes of Gerard Tracy, Shane Dooley, Shane Kelly, they'd all still be playing. It's funny about Tullamore. So Tullamore played Kilcormac in their last group game, and Kilcormac had a penalty. The game was level, I think. Kilcormac had a penalty, and Kilcormac were already through, so they went for a goal from the penalty, and it was saved. And Kilcormac might have been a point down, but the penalty was saved anyway. And all your man had to do was tip the ball over the bar, and Tullamore were out of the championship. But he wasn't thinking of it from a Tullamore point of view. He was just thinking, I'm Kilcormac, I'm going to score a penalty here and try and win the game. So Tullamore ended up beating Kilcormac, then ended up coming 4th in the group, scraped through to the semi-finals, beat Kilcormac again in the semi-final, which both of those wins would have been a surprise, and then they dominated Clara in the final. So you're talking tiny margins here from to be in a relegation final, potentially be down intermediate and Offaly, to now being in a Leinster intermediate semi-final. The margins are so fine. I probably fancy Tullamore to go through here, just about. Have a couple of footballers like Aaron Levy in that back. They'd be a big physical side. I think they might just edge this one.
Yeah, Leinster Junior semi-finals are also on. Blacks and Whites of Kilkenny are against Commercials. So Commercials, this would be Racool Commercials. They beat Mount Mellick 117-10 the last day out, so double scores there. And Blacks and Whites had an extra time win over Westmeath side Ringtown. And their captain, Paul Murphy, he was on scoreline and he was saying about the venue, which would be Nolan Park. It has to be an advantage. This will be our 4th game in Nolan Park now this year. And look, we're familiar with the surroundings. In there, we can set up our morning prep and get into Nolan Park an hour before the game. We're used to preparing ourselves for a game there. So look, it has to be an advantage for the home team. And I think in general, that tends to be the case. Sure, like I'm sure yourself over the years when you've had to play games in St. Brendan's Park or any venue that you're told, even with Offaly, I suppose, when you're playing your home games in Tullamore and you're so used to being there, it does kind of help. I found that with Coola and going into Parnell Park all the time. It just became like just routine.
Yeah, you get used to it. You get used to the dimensions of it. It's familiarity of it. Do you know what I mean? They're particularly potential for younger players going to new venues that just to be a bit daunting or wherever, particularly if it's a big venue or even if it's a tight venue, maybe that you're not used to. Just a couple of quick questions I want to touch on there, Shane. Neil M just says, lads, when are county panels normally out? Well, they're officially back training today, I think. Officially, but a lot of counties don't release their county panels. In fairness to Tipperary, they put a panel out. I think Mayo did last year as well, but a lot of counties won't, and we're scouring around trying to get names of who's in and who's out. But with a lot of counties, you mightn't actually find out until a squad is named for a league game or something like that, or one of the pre-season competition games. And then just another question here from our ML89 just says, Toreen, which will come to in a second, they're second favourites for Intermediate All-Ireland. If they win it, does that mean the return of the senior Connacht hurling final? I can't see it somehow. Unlucky last year, Naas, level with a few minutes left, and Father O'Neill's before that. Yeah, I wouldn't see it being brought back on the basis of one team, and it would just be a straight final if that was the case as well. I think they'd have to go and win it potentially for any serious talks of that happening.
Yeah, well, I suppose that is kind of the route. I mean, you can't punish Turin for the route that they have to take. Like Naas had that bit of a more straightforward path because they won Leinster Intermediate twice. They won the All-Ireland. So obviously everyone is like, oh, it makes sense to throw them into the Leinster Championship. And obviously they've gotten a great victory there as well against Shinrone. But I suppose for Turin, like, why wouldn't you give them an opportunity to play against, if they feel like we're up to that level and if they win the Intermediate All-Ireland, I don't see why you'd deny them a chance, because at the moment there's no Connacht Championship. It is like you would imagine that the Galway champion is going to beat them anyway. But why not give them an opportunity? Try it for a year or two. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least it gives you some sort of a Connacht Championship and maybe makes Turin and whatever other team from Mayo is pushing them feel like, we can aspire to kick on to another level. Now, maybe our viewers would think differently, but it's definitely an interesting point from ML89.
Just on that, Shane, as well, I'm hearing through the grapevine that potentially over the coming years that with Galway and Leinster, that it will be all in or nothing in at all. So by all in, I mean minor 20 senior club into Leinster as well. So it'll either be all in or none in. So I from what I'm hearing is there's a potential that could come down the line. So that's potential for a Thomas's to be in a Leinster Club Hurling Championship. That's kind of what I'm hearing, that they can't have their cake and eat it and want to play senior and maybe just say they want to play, I think, minor now, and they want to go into Leinster for under 20 as well. But I'm hearing potentially that if they want all that they're going to have to go all in, which would mean the club will go in as well. So that might be something interesting coming down the line.
And then that would make you wonder, well, then we're going to have 3 provinces only, and who fills the 4th spot in the All-Ireland semi-finals? Yeah,
no, it is. It's an interesting one, yeah. Sure, listen, Shane, Munster's so strong, she could put 2 of them in, couldn't you?
Correct and right. But
I said I'd suggest it before you did.
Yeah, but even then, Turin would obviously not be within that Galway deal. So let's say Turin kept winning. Would you keep the Connacht Intermediate going and they play against maybe a Galway Intermediate side? So let's say Galway do keep that part of the cake and continue eating it. Or do you say to Turin, look, we know this deal is only with Galway, but perhaps you would like to also, or whoever else wins Mayo, perhaps you would like to enter the Leinster Championship.
Yeah, and that could be the Leinster Intermediate Championship, Shane, as well. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be the Senior Championship, but that's something that could potentially be coming down the road.
Yeah, okay. So the other semi-final in the Leinster Junior is Horswood against St. Fechin's of Louth. Horswood being from Wexford. St. Fechin's beat St. Pat's of Kilcool 118-16. They're in good form. And Horswood saw off Aero Curraquill by 20 points to 13. We've already mentioned Turin there, and their Connacht Intermediate final is this weekend. They're against Clymer. So after ending a 38-year wait for a county championship silverware, Clymer embark on their provincial journey this Sunday, and that's going to be in that league. Clymer are underdogs against a Turin side that are chasing 3 in a row on Connacht and their 4th overall, and the winner will advance to an All-Ireland semi-final before Christmas. The Ulster Junior final is Shane O'Neill's against Satanta of Donegal. Moving back into the football, then Clonmel Commercials are against Newcastle West, and I believe you were interviewing one of the old stagers of the Newcastle West team this week.
I surely was, yeah. Mike McMahon, who was the man of the match in the county final, he's all of 6'5" and about 16 stone. But he said it kind of took him until lockdown or recent years before he kind of got his diet sorted. He said, like a lot of people, he was kind of saying that he was saying to them, like, not that he was heavy or anything, but he maybe wasn't as trim as he could be. He said, he started chatting to a nutritionist, and he's like, I can't understand how I'm not shifting weight. I'm just eating 3 square meals a day. But his 3 square meals, as he says, his dinner could have been the size of a wheelbarrow, like. But he was saying it like it was his 3 square meals. But he got big into nutrition, and he got big into doing some strongman competitions as well, and training for a strongman. There's a fella, I think he's based down in, I think he could be Newcastle West or Rathkeil. Pao O'Dwyer is his name, 5-time Irish strongman champion. So Mike started training, doing a good bit of training with him, and like he sent me on a picture of himself pulling a tractor, basically harnessed around his waist and that. Like he's a tank. He became a guard actually last year, but he's an absolute tank, parked at the edge of the square. And like if Newcastle West are going to cause Clonmel any trouble, he'd probably have to have a game of games. Newcastle West, they beat the Nair last year in Munster, and when they played Clonmel 7 years ago, I think Clonmel finished with like a big burst. I think they'd only scored 6 points in about 50 minutes, and then scored 6 points in the last 10 to win, I think, by 2 or 3. And then they went all the way to win Munster, scoring. Quinlan got that goal against Nemo and should have beaten Ballyboden. They always said in that semi-final, should have beaten them in normal time. They were a better team in normal time, and then we ran out of it in extra time. Whether Jason Lonergan's around for Clonmel or not is a big question. And again, I know he said it about Peter Cook and Mike Cullen. Like I think you pick and choose your days as well. So I don't know what Clonmel are doing with Lonergan this weekend, and I'd imagine Cook would be available when Mike Cullen play the next day out. But you'd have to say, based on that absolute total football performance we saw from Clonmel against Nemo, that they'd be fairly raging hot favourites, and they're Munster favourites at this stage realistically as well.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of a battle between maybe Seamus Kennedy and Mike McMahon, 2 big men. I mean, Seamus Kennedy's very lean athlete and all that, but physically that could be a good matchup there. I'm also thinking, would Ian Corbett maybe be, like, if Jason Lonergan, who's been centre forward, isn't available, will Michael Quinlivan revert to centre forward maybe? And could he be up against Ian Corbett? That could be a very tasty clash there. Like, there's a couple of players, like the inside line as well, that Clonmel have. Sean O'Connor, and you've Coleman Kennedy and all the other Kennedys as well. There's so many powerful runners. I mean, I don't think the game will be that there'll be much separating the 2 teams at the end, but I am leaning towards Clonmel in this one. And like you were looking at the scorelines that Cairns O'Reilly had in the senior championship in Kerry. Not impressive. They're obviously here by dint of winning the Kerry Club Championship, but geez, their form hasn't been great, and it's probably been a long while since they had a competitive match.
Yeah, I think they actually played the club championship final against Temple Noah was played after both Temple Noah and Cairns O'Reilly's were knocked out of the county championship. Like has there ever been? It's so convoluted. Like it's just crazy. The Cairns O'Reilly's could lose their 3 championship games by 35 points cumulatively, and are now representing them in Munster. The Stacks went well in the county went okay in the county championship, but went bad in the club championship. So now they're back down playing intermediate next year. Like it's nearly as bad as Cork, and Cork is bad and hard to understand. But it's just like the boys down in the west, particularly that southwest, just operate on a different plane completely. But Cairns O'Reilly's big one be whether Jack Savage is going to be around or not. But as Rory Hickey there said, like they do it, like they do. Still going to have the likes of Dave Moore. They're still going to have the likes of Tommy Walsh. But like their form would not suggest that they're a team that's going to go on a big run. They might get over the weekend, but I think it's a glorious opportunity for Ennis. I have to say, I think it's a glorious opportunity for them. And I think they might just about take it. It'll be something like 12-10 or something like that, if they are to win it, in my view, anyway.
Yeah, Darren O'Neill up against David Moran for a few kickouts. Like, Darren O'Neill is a massive man, and David Moran's obviously a big unit too, so that'd be tasty. And Gavin Cooney, if he keeps the form going that saw him hit 2-4 the last day out against Denair, they'll be flying it. In the Munster Intermediate semi-finals, Kanturk are up against Rathmore, so Aidan Walsh and Paul Murphy could be in close quarters, bit of Cork-Kerry vibe there. And in the other semi-final, it's Napearshig of Limerick. Obviously, their hurlers are gone from last week, so there'll be a little bit more attention, I'm sure, locally on the footballers this weekend, up against Tipperary club Ballina. Geez, I wouldn't say there's that far between the two clubs at all either in terms of geographically. But Michael Breen and Stephen O'Brien will be the main men for Ballina. And I don't think there's any Napearshig lads who were hurled that will be playing football, unless some players are sort of drafted in this week. But you know, what would that do for team morale? Probably not a whole lot.
There hadn't been until now, anyway, but like by all accounts, anytime I've ever talked to anybody doing a piece about Limerick football and what Limerick hurlers would be playing senior football, Will O'Donoghue, and it stands to reason by looking at him. He's the one lad that keeps coming back. Hegarty's another one, obviously, and Seamus Flanagan, who we'll talk about in a minute. So listen, I know what you're saying about morale, but like, O'Donoghue's a hurling man true and true, shall we say. He's a county hurler, he's an all-star hurler. Like, I don't think you'd exactly close the door on him if you know he wanted to come back or come in off the bench or something like that. Particularly, like, hurling is the number one game in the Napearshig, and the lads would probably be open about that. But like, look at the likes of Tullamore, we'll say, and Offaly, when the door opens back for lads to come back, footballers come back playing hurling, they'll take it. And like, listen, if you were a manager, Shane, and you thought, this lad, listen, I might make a call to this lad, and you're thinking, put my best 15 or my best 20 together to try and win this game. And like, he's a club man, you know what I mean? It's not as if you're bringing in someone from the cold. Like, so I don't know if to be a call made. Lads that played hurling will probably be still licking their wounds. And Mike Casey, unfortunately, Shane, is one that's definitely going to be licking his wounds. And just hope, I hope it's nothing serious. I hope it's only a meniscus or something like that. That's a 2 or 3 month job, but it didn't look hectic now at all.
No, it didn't. Not hectic, of course, is the name of the sportswear brand that Seamus Flanagan has, which is a nice little segue onto the fact that his Castlemahan are playing against Fossa of the Clifford fame this weekend. Just, I mean, we obviously wouldn't be able to analyse the two teams that well. We've only seen little highlight clips here and there. We obviously know about the Cliffords, but geez, if Flanagan plays in this game like he did in the previous match, I can't remember who that was against, but what an exhibition he gave, kicking 45s off the floor, side footing the ball into the top corner, into the angle. Like, he was popping them over from all angles. So it'd be interesting if we had a bit of a shootout between Seamus Flanagan and David Clifford this weekend.
No, but just, it's cool. And this is the great thing about the GA and the great thing about playing kind of two codes as well. So they won All-Irelands within a week of each other in Croke Park, two completely different codes. They might meet at the All-Stars or something like that. But what's the chance of them playing a big championship match against each other? And that's the beauty of this, and it's the beauty of going on a run. And I'm sure, like, I'd say Flanagan in time will love to say that he shared a pitch with David Clifford at some stage, potentially the greatest footballer of all time. Now, he'll be trying to beat him this weekend, or as the way I should have said, he'll be trying to bait him this weekend. And that's there's no two ways about it. He's a competitor. And I was woefully impressed with the clips I saw of just how it's not natural, obviously, because it has to be practiced, but he just looked like a sweet footballer. Flanagan did. That right-footed curler into the top corner, kicking frees off the ground. There's someone who has clearly kicked an awful lot of ball growing up, and like, people will look at it and say, sure, Fossa are definitely going to win. They have David Clifford and Paddy Clifford. That's grand. Like, they obviously need 13 lads with them and another 4 or 5, and you can't just rely on one man, because if the supply lines are stopped, and he can score 110 and they could still potentially be beaten. So I'm sure Castlemahan will be looking to take down Clifford and take down Fossa this weekend. But the duel of those two at opposite ends of the field is fascinating. Yeah,
so Kilmurray of Cork, they won their first Junior A county title in 36 years recently. They're going to be up against Thurles Sarsfields this weekend. And again, look, we've been talking about Seamus Flanagan, a hurler in the football team with Castleman. You're going to have Paddy Creedon. You're going to have, I think it's James Armstrong, who would have been with the county 20s. There's a couple of more lads that would have appeared for Tipperary at different levels. And Michael Cahill came on and he gave an exhibition. I think that was in the county final. He came off the bench and scored 1-1. So that's going to be, it'd be an interesting one then if you had Thurles Sarsfields against, well, let's say you had, for example, Michael Cahill marking, I don't know, Seamus Flanagan in a county in a Munster final. You know, there's tasty little potential matchups there. So then the Connacht Intermediate semi-final, St. Dominic's are against Auckland. That was due to be played last weekend, but it was very late notice that the game was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. Then the Ulster Senior semi-finals, Enniskillen Gaels are against Kilcoo, and Carrigan are against Glen. So both Enniskillen and Carrigan, they both won on penalties the last day. Kilcoo had it very easy against Ballybay, 2-14 to 1-7, so that was double scores. Glen were very good in the wind-up against Errigal Kieran of Tyrone, winning 3-10 to 1-12. And they're a team that are really kicking on. Like I suppose most people are expecting this to be a Kilcoo-Glen final. But last year, you know, you probably called me out on it. I was putting Glen up there as one of the favourites for the All-Ireland when we were doing the power rankings. But they're starting to frank that form that they had last year a little bit here now, and maybe having gotten one Ulster journey out of the way, didn't go their way. Now they're kicking on to that next level. It's no longer bonus territory. This is the projected course, and we need to get there.
It's not like you were premature. You were a year early, but they're there now, and it was funny to see Conor Glass actually saying it pretty openly after their quarter-final win that hurt them. Basically, a lapse against Kilcoo cost them. And like maybe they're potentially thinking that it cost them an All-Ireland when you see where Kilcoo went on to. But that's the dream final that everybody wants. And Enniskillen and Carrigan are trying to be the party poopers this weekend, but it's very hard to see. There's no point in saying any different. Kilcoo, I think, they've had a couple of humps and they've got over them now. Played good stuff against Ballybay the last day. Everyone was talking about the Jerome Johnson scenario and that, but they took it out of the equation completely. And you'd have to expect the two of them to book the Ulster final place at the weekend.
Yeah, the Ulster Intermediate semi-finals are also on. Castlerahan will meet Cardiff, on Cluckan Leah are against Galway Pierces. The Ulster Junior final then will see Drumlane meet Stewartstown Harps. There's some ladies football in the club this weekend. The All-Ireland Senior semi-final will see Ballymacarbery of Waterford fame against Kilkerran Clonbyrne. So the 41 in a row Waterford champions, they ended a 22-year wait to reclaim Munster. And it's called the Michael Ryan Cup, Michael Ryan being the man who led them to many titles. The other semi-final is Donaghmoyne against Kilmacud Crokes. So you just wonder there, will the home advantage make a difference for both Donaghmoyne and Ballymacarbery? Also, the All-Ireland Intermediate semi-finals are on. Mullinahone will meet Derry Donnelly Harps. Longford Slashers are against Charlestown Sarsfields. And finally, the All-Ireland Junior semi-finals. Salthill Knocknacar are against O'Dwyer's and Nave Abon against Castleblaney Fogs. So Michael Verney seems to have abandoned me here just momentarily. And while he has, I'll just remind people of the UCD coaching clinic that there he is, coaching clinic we've got coming up on Saturday, the 3rd of December. It's going to be at 12 p.m. Ger Brennan, Paul Galvin and Stephen Poacher are going to be there giving all sorts of tips to aspiring coaches. We're going to be giving details of what the lads are going to be covered, but Stephen Poacher was informing me that he's going to be talking all about different elements of working the press in Gaelic football, which is obviously a really important thing in these days. And to be honest, it is in hurling as well. So actually some of the coaching clinics that we've done so far, and like in terms of like, you know, looking at being a coach yourself, I was watching Davy Burke, who's going to be the Roscommon football manager this coming year. And I was watching what he was doing and I was thinking, gee, that's something, because the codes are so relatable, such crossover. I was like, geez, that could easily be brought into a hurling training session as well. So really looking forward to those. I think they're going to be excellent. We nearly have it all said, have we?
I think we do, yeah. Apologies. Nature called for me there, so I had to take a little step. I couldn't go any longer.
Okay, great stuff. Look, thanks very much, folks, for watching. We'll be back again on Monday. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, Jenna.